Hello, I'm William Attlee and this is a news brief with truth. See the men on the screen. They are the ancestors of the African American, but there is a problem: their true identity. Thomas McNeely has the story.
Well, William, the African American community is deeply divided due to the tagline, African Americans ain't Africans, which can be found in numerous places on the web. Now, it should be obvious as to why it's causing a commotion, but if it escapes you, let me explain. The current American education states African Americans were brought to America as slaves from Africa, which is simply not true. They are American indigenous, not descendants of Africans. As they say, the truth is stranger than fiction. Although this fact isn't spoken of openly, it's not a secret. However, with programming such as Roots, 12 Years a Slave, The African American Story, and The Book of Negroes, is it any wonder why so many African Americans are confused? We won't address all the misleading DNA tests being provided to connect African Americans to Africa. So, the argument is, do they continue identifying as African Americans, which is a fake identity for them, or embrace being identified as indigenous Americans?
Are there any consequences of choosing one identity over the other?
William, that's a good question. According to African Americans Ain't Africans Facebook forum, identifying as African American is to quietly relinquish ancestral connections to America, connections that go back hundreds of thousands of years. A curious story, but one appropriate for February, which is Black History Month in the United States.
What a conundrum. A story worth keeping an eye on for further developments. Thank you, Thomas. The drawing used in this presentation is from the 16th century book, America, being the latest and most accurate description of the New World by John Ogilvy and Arnoldus Montanus. As you may have guessed, the men in the drawing are American. I'm William Attlee and this has been a news brief with truth.
Gala, I get you. You know, like people can't spread their words out the way you want to do it, but it's something, you know, as we age, you know, because I'm 77 years old now. And as I speak, I know sometimes it come out wrong. But, you know, you want to put it in place, but, you know, it's hard. Hard for me to do it, you know. We went that far in school. I only went to 6th grade. Graduated from 6th grade. Like 6th grade, we had to go in the field and work. And I raised up by a stepfather, okay? And me and my three sisters, we had to, you know, get in the field or if we want anything. But my word, I don't know, it seemed like so hard to come out, you know. You see that little girl, she correct me all the time. No, Grandma, you know, I don't understand you too good, Grandma. I said, how you mean you can't understand me? You can understand other things, right? You can understand me. No, Grandma, I don't understand you. Then he think for a while. Yeah, something. Some of them, yeah, they call me from, if I'm from Africa or from, you know, I'm not from Africa. Tell them I'm a full-blooded American. As long as I can speak, you know, that people can understand some of the things. I understand the way y'all speak.
Most everybody here in the area came from former slaves. That my grandparents, as a child, they lived on a plantation.
They're going to eliminate us, and not only just from Plantersville, we'll eliminate us from America, because we're the only Geechee Gullah community that is intact and owners of land and tradition and a way of life. It's called Plantersville because we are descendants of slaves and from the plantations. And we all who came from the plantations, we were mostly planters.
Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya.
Come, yeah, means come here. And goda means go there. And we know. We know means we do not know.
Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Oh Lord, kumbaya.
This is our pump. That's actually where our water comes from. We get our water from right here. Our water runs fine.
It's hand down from ancestors. Yeah. But really, you hate to see the land go on the cause of, usage fee.
Kumbaya, my Lord.
Here we are about to go through the same scenario where the Africans went through. We're about to lose our lands and our culture, and we don't have anywhere else to go. We don't have anywhere else to go because we had this land and our families for generations. Thank you. We'll be in touch. All right. That was good, ain't it?
Today's video is brought to you by a donation from a subscriber. He wanted to know, why don't the so-called African American resemble Africans from Africa? Now, while doing the research, I fell down a rabbit hole that reaffirmed my beliefs that the African American is an artificial construct. And as a result, I thought it would be best suited to title this video, "Why did they create the African American?" Believe it or not, the African American is indigenous to the Americas. This includes North America, South America, and its surrounding islands. But unfortunately, the African American would rather hold firm and romanticize the root slave narrative his oppressor gave him.
The only duty we owe to history is to rewrite it, rewrite it, rewrite it. Oscar Wilde.
What we need to do is flood the world with new African histories that contain our European perspectives only. What we need to do is flood the world, flood the world, flood the world.
So now let's take a look at why they created the African American. Now let's first describe the African American. The African American is a creation of European think tanks and secret societies. He has been disconnected from nature, and in general he has no survival skills. If he were to be placed suddenly in the wilderness, he would not survive. The African American does not produce his own food, he does not discover, mine, and refine any natural resources, and sadly, he does not even educate his own children. By and large, the African American hates the truth and shuns the occult, while his oppressors use the occult to stay in power. The average African American is cold-blooded and brutal towards each other, but loving towards foreigners and his oppressors. For the most part, he does not know who his enemy is and tries to be accepted by the people that treat him the worst. Typically, the African American is an advocate for diversity, but no one wants to include him. The so-called African American will always give excuses why he can't break free and be independent. He is easily discouraged if a roadblock is put in his way, and if a black leader gets assassinated, so does the mission. The African American shuns the idea of monolithic thought, while foreigners use monolithic thought to practice group economics to milk the African American community while boycotting it at the same time. The African American has no free will and can be easily controlled by using entertainers, politicians, pastors, and black women. The aforementioned are all gatekeepers to white hegemony. They help keep the status quo and prevent change. The artificial construct, African American, is a creation similar to Frankenstein, an artificial European but stripped of its language, culture, humanity, and lineage. Now let's talk about why they created the African American. Simply put, the African American was created to slowly self-destruct and rid the world of himself so foreigners can set up an environment that is conducive to their way of living and help drive the African American into extinction. The bankers have skillfully created the African American. The main purpose of the African American is to build the empires of others and to take the earnings he makes from building to buy those people's products. Alright, so now let's talk about why the African American is not African. The African American holds on to the theory that all life came from Africa, yet Europeans, Asians, and other races don't claim to be African. Nothing about the African American is African. He has no African language, customs, religion, no African citizenship, and to make matters worse, the African American can't name what part of Africa he's from. Ironically, the people in the continent of Africa don't call themselves African. Only the Black American holds firm to this title. Other races don't claim to be associated to another race just based on skin color, hair texture, and phenotype. If the Europeans brought African slaves to America, humiliated and dehumanized them, why would they put them on the currency? Let's take a look at some images of Black Americans on the US currency. The African American continues to run away from the fact that he's indigenous to America. How much education the African American receives, no matter how many clues are given to him, he still wholeheartedly believes the narrative by his oppressor, that his roots are in Africa. Every religious belief given to the African American places him in a foreign land. The Moors point to their roots in Morocco, the Hebrew Israelites and Christians point to Israel, and the Nation of Islam point to Mecca. So in this section, we're going to be comparing pictures, but I'm not going to be giving any commentary because I want people to compare for themselves and make up their mind if the African American is indeed African. Alright, so now let's take a look at my final thoughts. When we take a closer look at the so-called African American, we find a group that is easily distracted, easily discouraged. A group that is not focused on generational wealth and survival, but on building on other people's empire and consuming their products. A group that is looking for a messiah and fails to understand that change is a group effort, and revolution is hard work and requires sacrifices. The African American fails to understand is that if he's going in a direction unhindered, no roadblocks, no smoke screens, then he's going in the wrong direction. And it doesn't matter how many Afrocentric scholars and books he quotes, it still won't change the out of Africa theory into a fact. The so-called African American is the Aboriginal American. He is the Native American. Now, can we build alliances with African nations? Of course. But to claim Africa is our homeland is not only ignoring the truth, but it is throwing away our heritage and history. There's a saying that the mind is like a parachute. It only works when open. And it is only when the African American opens his mind will the process of breaking the chains of oppression begin.
When did we start forgetting who we are on this land? When did our ancestral voices become silent to our ears? What happened that made us forget ourselves? We must remember again for the sake of our children, so that they may partake of their inheritance, which is this land and its resources. For us not to remember those who we belong to and the land for which they came from is to condemn our children to a life of non-existence. We must remember ourselves. We must see ourselves again when we hear America.